Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Marcus Hoffman was awakened at 3 a.m. by a ringing phone. An incoming call at this hour usually means an emergency, but confusion replaces worry when he sees his wife Victoria's name on the caller ID. Victoria should be downstairs in her study working, so why call him? Marcus awake? Victoria's voice sounded unusually excited, with a smugness he'd never heard before. What's wrong? Marcus sits up in bed and rubs his eyes. Done. Victoria's voice was filled with the thrill of victory. The company is mine. Security will escort you out in the morning. The words sobered Marcus instantly like ice water. How could Hoffman and Associates, the consulting firm they ran together, the business they had built from scratch in 15 years, be hers overnight? Marcus' first reaction was not anger, but a strange calmness. The calm came from a cool mind trained by years of business negotiations, and from a deep understanding of Victoria's nature, an understanding he had always chosen to ignore. Interesting, Marcus said calmly, not a ripple in his voice. Victoria seemed a little surprised by the calm response. She was obviously expecting shock, anger, or at least panic. Marcus, do you understand what I'm saying? Tomorrow morning. I hear you. Marcus interrupted, while already fumbling around on the nightstand for his cell phone. Victoria, congratulations. Then he hung up. Marcus immediately opened his cell phone and found an email he had prepared 3 months ago. The addressee was Stuart Mills, his personal attorney and one of the few people who knew the truth about Marcus. The title of the email was simple, Implementing Option B. Marcus hit send and then lay back down on the bed. But instead of sleeping, he stared silently at the ceiling, his mind going back over all the evidence he'd gathered over the past few months. Victoria thought she was smart, thought she knew Marcus well enough to predict his every reaction. But she was wrong. She sees just the side of Marcus that he wants her to see, the mild-mannered, work-focused technologist with no interest in business politics. In reality, Marcus is an extremely good strategist. He just prefers to operate behind the scenes. For over 15 years, Marcus' wisdom has been behind every major decision made, every crisis handled, and every key client secured by Hoffman and Associates. But he always let Victoria stand at the front of the stage and enjoy the aura of success. In hindsight, this was a mistake. By sunrise, Marcus was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. He made a pot of coffee and toasted a few slices of bread, as he usually did every morning. The only difference was that his cell phone kept ringing. The first call was from Stuart. Marcus, I got your email. Stuart's voice sounded both excited and nervous. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you start, there's no turning back. I'm sure, Marcus said as he added sugar to his coffee. The schedule is on schedule. Okay, the paperwork is on its way. The court will convene at 9 a.m. and the temporary injunction will go into effect by 10 a.m. Stuart paused. Marcus, you really have known this for a long time, haven't you? I know what Victoria is planning, and I know when she'll make her move. Marcus said calmly. I'm just waiting for her to expose herself. After hanging up, Marcus hears the phone ringing from upstairs, and it won't stop. Victoria's cell phone was ringing frantically, her voice growing shriller and more frightened. What? It's impossible. Victoria's voice came down from upstairs. He had no right to do that. Then there was a silence, followed by louder shouting. What are you babbling about? What do you mean? He owns 80% of the company? We're splitting it 50-50. Marcus smiled and took a sip of his coffee. That's the problem with Victoria. She always assumes people are as cunning as she is, but never bothers to get into the details. 15 years ago, when they first started their business, Marcus did sign a 50-50 agreement with Victoria. But that's just the initial share allocation. For the next 15 years, Marcus was behind the company whenever it needed a capital infusion, whenever it needed to secure a loan, and whenever it needed to take on legal liability. With each capital infusion, Marcus has increased his stake. For every risk taken, he demanded corresponding equity compensation. Victoria, on the other hand, was always focused on short-term cash flow and superficial success and never scrutinized these complex equity changes. What's more, the company's core assets, customer relationships, patented technologies, and trade secrets are all in Marcus' hands. Victoria may have a nice office and a loud title, but Marcus is the real brain and heart of the company. The ringing of the phone upstairs finally stopped, replaced by the sound of hurried footsteps. Victoria rushed down the stairs, her hair disheveled and her face pale. "Marcus!" She gasped and cried out. "What have you done?" Marcus looked up at her with a disturbingly calm expression. "I protected my property." "Your property? This is our company." "No, Victoria. This is my company. All the time." Marcus stood up and walked towards her. "You are only as involved as I allow you to be." A look of panic appeared on Victoria's face. "Marcus, you can't do this. We're married, we're business partners." Marcus calmly interrupted her. "At least it was once. But since you chose to betray, that partnership is over." "I didn't betray you." Victoria protested loudly, but her eyes had revealed the truth. Marcus pulled his cell phone out of his pocket and played a recording. "Done. The company is mine. Security will escort you out in the morning." The voices on the recording rang out clearly in the kitchen. "That's what you said last night," Marcus said. "And this." He played another recording, this time of Victoria talking to a man. "Once Marcus is kicked out, we can proceed as planned." Victoria's voice said, "Don't worry, I've got the legal process all arranged. Everything will be settled in the morning." The man's voice replied. Marcus recognized the voice, David Chun, the new partner Victoria had been talking about so much lately. Victoria's face is completely white. "Marcus, are you eavesdropping on my calls?" "I protect my interests," Marcus replied, "just like you tried to steal my company." At 10 a.m., Marcus sat in his office and watched the chaotic scene on the parking lot. Victoria's car had been towed and her personal belongings were in several cardboard boxes on the doorstep. Security did escort someone out, but it wasn't Marcus. Stuart walks into the office with a stack of papers in his hand. The temporary injunction is in effect. He reported that Victoria was prohibited from entering company property, contacting customers, and accessing any company systems. "How did she react?" Marcus asked. "It is my understanding that she is now in David Chin's office. Their legal team is trying to find a response." Stuart sat down. "But Marcus, I must say, their legal position is very tenuous. You've gathered too much evidence." Marcus nodded. For the past 3 months, he's been systematically documenting Victoria's every suspicious behavior. She thought she was being careful, but she misjudged Marcus' powers of observation. "What's her plan with David?" Marcus asked. "According to our intercepted communications, they intend to kick you out of the company through a shareholder vote, and then have David's investment firm acquire your shares at a price well below market value." Stuart flipped through the documents. "Actually, it's a classic case of a hostile takeover, only it's packaged as an internal reorganization. They underestimated my percentage of equity. It's not just the equity ratio. They seem completely unaware of your true place in the corporate structure." Stuart shook his head. "Victoria may think she knows the company's finances, but she's never had access to the core documents." It's true. While Victoria was nominally the co-founder and COO of the company, Marcus maintained control of the core business from the start. All major customer contracts were signed in Marcus' name, all key technologies were developed by him, and all banking relationships were established by him. Victoria sees the glamorous office, the generous salary, and the glamorous title, but she never really understands the mechanics of how the company works. "Now we need to discuss the next step," Stuart continued. "Victoria and David may try other means, such as defamation, lawsuits, and maybe even attempts to poach clients." Stuart said seriously, "You need to be prepared." Marcus smiled, and it was a disturbing smile. "Stuart, why do you think I waited until now to make my move?" Stuart looked at Marcus and suddenly understood something. "You have other preparations." "I have more than just other preparations," Marcus said. "I have a complete file on her." Marcus walks over to the office safe, enters the combination, and removes a thick folder. He placed the folder in front of Stuart and sat back in his chair. "What is it?" Stuart asked, though he had guessed the answer from the look on Marcus' face. "This is a complete record of Victoria's behavior for the past 15 years, Marcus said calmly, "including her work history prior to joining our firm, the timeline of her real relationship with David Chun, and all of her questionable activities during our marriage." Stuart opened the folder and quickly skimmed through the pages, his face growing serious. "Marcus, how did you get this information?" "I hired private investigators," Marcus replied. "It started 6 months ago when I first noticed a change in Victoria's behavioral patterns." 6 months ago? You suspected it then? Not just skeptical. I confirmed it. Marcus' voice turned icy. Victoria thought she was smart, but she made a fatal mistake. She underestimated my observation skills and preparation. Stewart continued to read the document, becoming more and more shocked the more he read. It shows here that Victoria and David Chin's relationship goes back 3 years. 3 years and 4 months. Marcus corrected. Well, before she introduced him to me as a potential investor. In fact, David has been her partner from the beginning, and our marriage is, in all likelihood, part of their long-term plan. This information came as a complete shock to Stewart. You mean Victoria married you just to be close to the company? The evidence is all there. Marcus points to the folder. Victoria used to work for another of David's investment targets before she met me. That company was successfully acquired by David within 6 months of her departure, at a price well below market value. Stewart turned to the relevant page and read it carefully. Meridian Marketing. She worked there for 3 years and then abruptly quit, and the company then lost 3 of its biggest clients. And those clients end up turning to rival companies in David's portfolio. Marcus added, "This is not a coincidence. This is systematic commercial espionage. Then she married you. It's to get closer to Hoffman and Associates." Marcus completes Stewart's sentence. David needs an insider, and Victoria needs a new identity and a higher social status. Our combination is the perfect solution for them. Stewart put down the file and looked at Marcus. "You knew all this. Why didn't you act sooner?" "Because I need her to expose herself completely," Marcus replied. "Now she didn't just try to steal my company. She committed multiple felonies under the law. Commercial espionage, fraud, conspiracy, these are all federal crimes. What are you going to do?" Marcus's smile becomes more dangerous. "I intend to make sure she pays for all the deception of the last 15 years. At 2 p.m., Marcus received an unexpected visitor, David Chun. David is a Chinese-American man in his early 40s, suited and confident. His investment firm is well known in the industry and specializes in acquisitions and restructuring of small and medium-sized enterprises. But Marcus knew that much of David's success was built on his ability to get information from inside the target company. "Marcus, I think we need to talk." David got right to the point. "Have a seat." Marcus pointed to the chair across the desk. "What do you want to talk about?" "About what happened this morning." David says, "I think it's a misconception. Victoria is just trying to get better for the company. Kicking me out of my own company through a secret program." Marcus' tone remains calm. "It's an interesting growth strategy." An uncomfortable expression flashed across David's face. "Marcus, that's the way business is. Sometimes tough decisions need to be made." "You're right." Marcus agreed. "Like this decision." He turned on his computer and a web page showed up on the screen, the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, reporting page. "Do you know what this is, David?" Marcus asked. David's face began to change. That's the tip I filed last night." Marcus interrupted. "About Chun Investments' insider trading activities over the last 5 years. The screen shows detailed transaction records, communication records, and financial analysis. Marcus has compiled a complete case file of all of David's illegal activities." "How did you get this information?" David's voice trembled a little. "Victoria is a very talkative person, especially when she thinks she's smart." Marcus replied. "She told me a lot of details about your partnership model." The reality is that Marcus has been investigating David Chun since 3 months ago. When he notices that Victoria has begun to meet with this investor more frequently, he realizes that there may be a problem. As a successful business consultant, Marcus has an extensive network of contacts. A few phone calls later, he gathered detailed information about David's real business model. David is indeed an investor, but the secret to his success is obtaining confidential information through insiders and then using that information for insider trading. "You can't do that." David stood up. "You have no proof that dash." "I have all of Victoria's calls with you," Marcus said calmly. "I have your email exchanges. I have your bank transaction records showing that you traded in the underlying stock before each acquisition." David's face had gone completely white. "More interestingly," Marcus continued, "I also have evidence that you paid Victoria a consulting fee for her inside information on Hoffman and Associates. This is legally known as commercial bribery." "It's true." Marcus discovered several consulting fee payments from David in Victoria's personal account, all timed to coincide with her access to sensitive company information. Marcus, we can talk terms. David's demeanor changed completely. I can make it up to you for the loss of Dash. I have nothing to lose. Marcus stood up. You're the ones with something to lose. The SEC will officially launch its investigation tomorrow. The FBI's white-collar crime unit will also be involved. David left the office in a hurry, but it was too late. Marcus has submitted all evidence separately to the appropriate law enforcement authorities. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, Marcus received a call from Stuart. Marcus, the results are even better than we expected. Stuart's voice was full of satisfaction. David Chin's office was just searched by the FBI, and all his assets were frozen. Where's Victoria? She's being questioned by the FBI right now. According to my sources, she's already trying to put all the blame on David. Marcus felt a surge of deep satisfaction. The first phase of his revenge was going well, but he knew there was more work to be done. Stuart, prepare to initiate Phase 2. A civil suit. Divorce proceedings, property division, and personal damages. Marcus' voice became more determined. I'm going to make sure she loses everything. Later that evening, Marcus continued to review the evidence he had gathered in his study at home. Every document, every photograph, every recording was a piece of his carefully planned revenge scheme. His cell phone rings, and the caller ID shows Jennifer Walker, his assistant and security consultant. Jennifer is a former FBI analyst in her early 30s, and when Marcus hired her 2 years ago, many people couldn't understand why a consulting firm would need such a talent. Now they understand. Marcus, I just finished an in-depth analysis of Victoria's personal finances. Jennifer's voice sounded excited. I found something very interesting. What discovery? Victoria has moved approximately $2 million into offshore accounts over the past 2 years through a series of complex financial maneuvers. The accounts were opened in false names, but the money trails were clearly traceable. Marcus' grip on his cell phone tightened. She's been preparing for an escape, not just running away. According to account activity records, she and David planned to leave the United States for a non-extradition country immediately after the successful acquisition of Hoffman and Associates. They have purchased property in the Cayman Islands and opened bank accounts in Switzerland. This discovery gives Marcus's plan for revenge even more urgency. Victoria isn't just cheating on him. She's systematically emptying their marital assets in preparation for a new life with David. Jennifer, can you trace the exact source of these funds? It's already underway. Preliminary analysis indicates that some of the funds came from the company's working capital that she misappropriated and some from a line of credit that she applied for in your name. In my name? Yes. She forged your signature and applied for multiple personal loans and credit cards. The total amount is about $500,000. Marcus felt a surge of anger come over him, but he quickly turned it into calm determination. Victoria is digging a deeper grave for herself with every act of deception. Jennifer, I need you to do a couple things. The first is to organize the evidence of all these financial crimes into a complete case file to be submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office tomorrow morning. It's already being prepared. Second, I want you to investigate any other victims Victoria and David may have been involved with. If they did this to me, there are likely others who have been similarly victimized. Understood. It will add more weight to the case. Third, I need you to help me set up meetings with a couple of key clients. They need to know the truth in case Victoria and David try to reach them. After hanging up, Marcus paced the den. He realizes that he's not just avenging himself. He's protecting other innocent businessmen who could be Victoria and David's next targets. This realization gives his actions a higher moral justification. He is no longer just a betrayed husband, but an enforcer of justice. The next morning, Marcus begins the second phase of his revenge plan by systematically destroying Victoria's reputation in business and social circles. First, he arranged meetings with 5 of Hoffman and Associates' most important clients. These clients are not just a source of revenue for the company. They are also opinion leaders in the industry, and their attitudes will influence how Victoria is perceived throughout the industry. The meeting took place at Marcus' office, and attendees included the city's largest real estate developer Richard Hawthorne, Sarah Martinez, CEO of a well-known tech company, and several other key business partners. Gentlemen, Marcus began, I've gathered you all here because you need to know about a situation that threatens our entire business community. He recounts Victoria and David's machinations in detail to everyone present, including their business espionage, financial scams, and planned escape. We all know Victoria, Richard Hawthorne said. She has always struck us as professional and credible. It's hard to believe she would do something like that. I understand your shock, Marcus replied, but the evidence is undeniable. He showed some of the evidence, including audio recordings, emails, and financial records. As the evidence was presented, the expressions of those present changed from skepticism to shock and finally to anger. If she can betray you, Sarah Martinez said, she can betray any of us. All of the trade secrets we share with Hoffman and Associates may be at risk. That's exactly what I was worried about, Marcus replied. I would recommend that everyone immediately review all sensitive information with which Victoria has come into contact to ensure there is no risk of compromise. After the meeting, Marcus knew word would spread quickly. In close-knit business circles, such news of betrayal and fraud can spread like wildfire. By that afternoon, Marcus's phone was ringing off the hook. More business partners want details, more customers want to confirm their information security, and more industry colleagues want to show their support. Victoria's professional reputation completely collapsed in one day. No one wants to do business with someone accused of commercial espionage and financial fraud. But Marcus knows that this is just the beginning. On the third day, Marcus receives an unexpected visitor, Victoria. She looked haggard, dressed in yesterday's clothes. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she obviously hadn't slept well for days. This once radiant and confident woman now looks like a shadow of herself. Marcus, her voice was hoarse, please let me in. We need to talk. Marcus considered it for a moment, then opened the door. But instead of letting her into the living room, he conversed with her in the foyer. You have 3 minutes, he said. Marcus, I know things look bad, but you don't know the full picture. Victoria began. David lied to me. He convinced me it was best for the company, and he said you wouldn't really get hurt. Stop. Marcus calmly interrupted her. Stop lying, Victoria. I know you and David go back 3 years. I know you married me to be close to the company. I know you embezzled company funds, forged my signature, and stashed money in offshore accounts. Victoria's face turned pale. How could you possibly know? I know everything. Marcus's voice became colder, including your criminal records with Meridian Marketing and Apex Solutions. It's not the first time you've done this, Victoria. You're a professional liar. Victoria completely breaks down and she starts to cry, but Marcus has no sympathy. Marcus, please. I can explain everything, she choked out. I can make up for . What can you make up for? 15 years of lies. Stolen money? Trust betrayed. Marcus' voice was filled with disgust. Can you make up for this betrayal? I love you, Victoria suddenly shouted. Believe it or not, I do love you. Marcus looked at her silently before saying what was probably the most atrocious words of their last conversation. If that's what you love, then I'm glad there aren't many of you who hate me. A look of despair appeared on Victoria's face. Marcus, you can't do this to me. We're husband and wife. We used to be married. Marcus corrected. Now you're just a criminal I used to trust. He took a document out of his pocket and handed it to her. What is it? Victoria asked shakily. Divorce proceedings. Marcus replied. I am asking you to assume all of the marital debt, including the loan you took out in my name. I'm also asking for damages, including the company money you stole and the damage to my reputation. Victoria's legs went weak and she could barely stand when she opened the file and saw the amount of damages demanded. $3 million? Marcus, I don't have that kind of money. Then sell your property in the Cayman Islands and empty your Swiss bank account. Marcus said calmly. I know where you hid the money. Victoria's last glimmer of hope is dashed when she realizes that Marcus really does know everything. What if I refuse to sign? She asked weakly. Then the matter will be open for trial in a court of law, and all of your offenses will be a matter of public record. The media will be very interested in this. Marcus replied. Your choices are to settle privately or to be publicly humiliated. Victoria knew she had no choice. Her reputation had been completely ruined in the business world, and if this became a media sensation, she would never be able to make a fresh start anywhere. I need time to think about it, she said. You have 24 hours. Marcus replied. I'll release the full story to the press afterward. After Victoria left, Marcus felt a sense of relief he hadn't felt in months. The sweetness of vengeance lies not in seeing your enemies suffer, but in seeing justice done. The next night, Marcus received a signed copy of the divorce papers. Victoria agreed to all the conditions, including the assumption of all debts and the payment of damages. But the story isn't over yet. A week after the divorce papers are signed, Marcus begins the final phase of his revenge plan to ensure that Victoria can never hurt another innocent person again. His first step was to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office to ensure that Victoria faced the most serious criminal charges. Through Jennifer's investigation, they discover that Victoria and David's criminal network is much larger than initially thought. Marcus, Jennifer reported from his office, we found 7 other companies that have suffered attacks similar to ours. The pattern is exactly the same. An insider leaks the information, and then David's company makes a lowball offer. Are the victims willing to cooperate? Mostly willing. Once they learn the truth, they all want to see justice done. 2 of the companies lost more than $5 million. Marcus nodded. These additional victims don't just add weight to the case. They also provide a higher level of moral justification for his actions. He is no longer just seeking personal revenge, but justice for all victims. Jennifer, arrange for me to meet with the CEOs of these companies. We need to coordinate our actions to ensure that Victoria and David face the most serious consequences. Over the next few days, Marcus builds an alliance with the other victims. They share evidence, coordinate legal strategies, and jointly pressure regulators. The power of this coalition soon became apparent. The media begins to focus on this case of commercial fraud involving multiple companies. The FBI ramps up its investigation, and Victoria and David's legal situation becomes increasingly precarious. Marcus also adopted another strategy to ensure that Victoria could not resume her criminal career elsewhere. He worked with the industry's leading human resources firm to create a database of information about Victoria's criminal record. Any company looking to hire Victoria Walsh will receive a detailed report on her criminal history. Marcus explained to Stewart that she will never again be able to obtain any position that requires trust. Is this legal? Stewart asked. Totally legit. These are public records, and we're just making sure the information is transparent. Marcus replies, Victoria chose to commit a crime, and now she must suffer permanent consequences. Marcus' vengeance is not limited to the legal and financial aspects. He also employs elaborate psychological tactics to ensure that Victoria fully understands the consequences of her actions. He began systematically contacting Victoria's friends and family, not to malign them, but to let them know the truth. He knows that Victoria has been lying to these people, claiming that she's an innocent victim of Marcus' vicious revenge. Marcus' strategy is simple: let the facts speak for themselves. He first contacted Victoria's sister, Rebecca, an accountant who worked at a local bank. Rebecca has been very supportive of Victoria, even offering her financial help after legal problems arose. Rebecca, I know Victoria told you her version, but I think you should see the full proof. Marcus said by phone. Marcus, I don't want to be caught in the middle of your divorce dispute. Rebecca replied. This is not a divorce dispute. It's about systemic criminal activity. Marcus said, Victoria didn't just betray me. She falsified your identifying information to open a bank account. This information shocked Rebecca. What? This can't be. I'll send you the evidence. Marcus said, then you can decide for yourself if you want to continue to support her. Similar conversations are repeated in Victoria's social circle. Marcus doesn't need to malign Victoria. The facts speak for themselves. One by one, Victoria's friends and family begin to alienate her. Not because of Marcus' manipulation, but because they can't accept being lied to and used. Victoria's mother, Eleanor, was the last to learn the truth and the one who hit Victoria the hardest. I don't know when my daughter became like this. Eleanor choked up on the phone with Marcus and said, I apologize to you, Marcus, for her behavior. Mrs. Walsh, you are not responsible for her choices. Marcus replies, but he knows that the loss of his mother's support would be devastating for Victoria. 3 months later, Victoria and David's case made headlines in the local media. Business Week published a detailed investigative report entitled The Price of Trust: The Rise and Fall of a Commercial Spy Network. The article describes in detail how Victoria and David used inside information to make corporate acquisitions, defrauded innocent businessmen, and attempted to avoid legal consequences. Marcus is described in the article as a courageous whistleblower who took a personal risk to expose this criminal network. In contrast, Victoria is portrayed as a cold-blooded manipulator who betrays the trust of those closest to her by using her marriage as a criminal tool. The day after the article was published, Marcus received a call from Victoria. It was the first time she had reached out to him in months. "Marcus," her voice sounded desperate and angry. "Are you satisfied? Now the whole world knows." "I'm satisfied that justice was served," Marcus replied calmly. "You ruined my life." Victoria cried out, "I can no longer work anywhere. No one will trust me. Not even my family will see me." "Victoria, these are the consequences of your own choices." Marcus replies, "You chose to cheat. You chose to betray. You chose to sin. Now you are bearing the cost of those choices. I made a mistake, but your retaliation went too far. Excessive." Marcus' voice turned cold. "Victoria, you tried to steal 15 years of my heart and soul. You misappropriated our joint property. You forged my signature, and you planned to flee the country. And you think I'm overreacting?" Victoria was silent for a long time, and then her voice grew small. "Marcus, I know I hurt you, but you can't punish me forever. There has to be an end to it." "The end," Marcus repeats. "Victoria, this is just the beginning. Do you think it's over when the legal process is over? What else do you want?" Victoria's voice was filled with fear. "I want to make sure you can never hurt another innocent person again." Marcus replied, "I want to make sure that everyone who might hire you knows who you really are. I want to make sure you take full responsibility for your crimes." "Marcus, please." Marcus hung up. He said enough already. 6 months later, Victoria and David's criminal trial began. Marcus testified as the primary witness, and his testimony was detailed, accurate, and devastating. Victoria in the courtroom looked like a completely different person. She had lost a lot of weight. Her hair was gray, and her eyes were hollow. This once charming and confident woman now looks utterly defeated by life. "Mr. Hoffman," the prosecutor asked, "has the defendant Victoria Walsh ever expressed remorse to you for these criminal activities?" "No," Marcus replied. "Until she was caught, she was in denial and lying. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence, she still tries to shift the blame to others. During your 15 years of marriage, have you noticed any indications that she was criminally inclined?" Marcus paused for a moment, then replied, "In retrospect, there were some signs. She's always overly concerned about money and status. She's very good at manipulating others, and she lacks true empathy. But I chose to ignore the warning signs at the time." "What kind of damage do you think you have suffered as a result of the defendant's behavior?" "The economic damage is about $3 million, but the emotional and psychological damage is incalculable." Marcus replied, "She didn't just betray my trust, she made me question my fundamental beliefs about humanity." When Victoria's attorney conducted rebuttal questioning, he attempted to portray her as a victim of David Chun, claiming that she had been manipulated and coerced. "Mr. Hoffman, don't you think my client might be a victim of this conspiracy as well?" the lawyer asked. Marcus looked straight at Victoria, then calmly replied, "No, I don't think so. Victoria Walsh is an adult who made her own choices. She chose to cheat. She chose to betray. She chose to sin. She has to take responsibility for those choices." The jury's deliberations lasted only 2 hours. On the count of commercial fraud, we find the defendant Victoria Walsh guilty. On the conspiracy count, we find the defendant guilty. On the money laundering count, we find the defendant guilty. Every guilty verdict is like a nail in Victoria's coffin. In announcing the verdict, the judge said, "Victoria Walsh, you used your personal connections to engage in systematic criminal activity. You have betrayed your husband's trust, compromised multiple businesses, and attempted to avoid legal consequences. Your behavior shows a complete disregard for law and morality. I sentence you to 12 years in federal prison without parole. You must also pay restitution to the victims totaling $8 million. Victoria crashed. She cried loudly in court, but no one sympathized with her. She finally paid the price she deserved for her crimes. David Chun was sentenced to 18 years in prison and all his assets were confiscated to compensate the victims. After the trial, Marcus felt a deep sense of relief, but not joy. Justice was served, but the process also changed him. He returned to the rebuilt Hoffman and Associates, which is now more successful than ever. New clients came to him, and existing clients admired his integrity and courage. Marcus, Jennifer said from his office, we received the contract from the Thompson Group. It's the largest single business in our history. Very good. Marcus nodded, but his reaction wasn't as excited as expected. Are you okay? Jennifer asked with concern. Marcus looks out the window at the city skyline. I was thinking about Victoria. You regret it? No, I don't regret my actions. Marcus replied. What I regret is that it took me so long to see her for what she really is. If I had acted sooner, maybe the other victims wouldn't have suffered. Jennifer nodded. But you ended up doing the right thing. Yes. Marcus turned to face her. But at what cost? What kind of person have I become? It's a question Marcus has been thinking about. Did he lose a part of his humanity in his quest for justice? Has his coldness and calculation become part of his character? A few days later, Marcus received a letter from the prison. The sender is Victoria. He hesitated for a long time before finally deciding to open it. Marcus, the letter began, I know I have no right to write to you, but I need to say something. I will no longer make excuses for my behavior. I made a mistake. I hurt you and a lot of other people. I take full responsibility for this. But I need you to know that at some point in our marriage, my feelings were real. Maybe not from the beginning, maybe not until the end, but there was a time when I really loved you. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I know that's impossible. I just hope you don't let my betrayal destroy your ability to believe in love. You're a good man, Marcus. You deserve happiness. Don't close your heart to my mistakes. Victoria. Marcus read the letter and set it aside. He didn't know how much of Victoria's words were true, but it didn't matter anymore. What matters is how he chooses to continue his life. A year later, Marcus spoke at the company's annual meeting. More than 100 employees, including some new faces, were seated on the stage. This past year has been a challenging one for all of us. Marcus begins. We've experienced betrayal, legal battles, and media attention. But we also learned a valuable lesson. He paused and looked around the stage at the audience. The most important lesson we learned is that integrity is not optional. It is the foundation of our company culture, the core of our relationships with our clients, and a reflection of our personal character. We also learned that when integrity is at stake, we must be brave enough to stand up and protect it, no matter how high the cost, no matter how difficult the process. The stage erupted in applause. But most importantly, Marcus continued, we learned the power of unity. When we faced threats, we did not retreat, we did not compromise. We are united to face the challenges together. That's the spirit of Hoffman and Associates. That's where we're headed. After the meeting, Marcus is approached by his new assistant, Catherine. Catherine is a 28-year-old MBA graduate who is smart, honest, and energetic. Marcus, there's a Ms. Charlotte Williams who wants to see you. She said it was about a new business opportunity. Marcus nodded. Arranged to meet tomorrow afternoon. One more thing. Catherine hesitated. The CEO of the Thompson Group wants to invite you to their charity dinner. He said you could take a mate. Marcus realizes that this is Catherine's way of politely inquiring about his personal life situation. Since Victoria's incarceration, he has been living alone, focusing on his work and rebuilding his company. Tell him I'll be attending. Marcus replied, but I'll go alone. Catherine nodded, but Marcus saw the worry in her eyes. He knew she and the rest of the staff were concerned that he was becoming too isolated. That night, Marcus sat on the deck of his home, looking out over the city at night. With a glass of whiskey in his hand, he contemplated the experiences of the past year. He managed to get revenge for himself, and both Victoria and David paid for their crimes. But the feeling of victory wasn't as satisfying as he thought it would be. Revenge is a powerful motivator, but it is also a consuming emotion. When the goal is achieved, what is left behind is emptiness and exhaustion. Marcus realizes he needs to find new purpose, new meaning. He can't live in the shadow of the past forever. His cell phone rang, displaying an unknown number. Marcus Hoffman. He replied, Mr. Hoffman, this is Special Agent Sarah Chun of the FBI. We hadn't spoken directly before, but I was one of the investigators on the Victoria Walsh case. Marcus felt a pang of nervousness. What's the problem? There's no question. Actually, I'm calling to thank you. Your courage and persistence helped us bust a much larger criminal network. Victoria and David are just part of it. A bigger network? Yes. We have identified at least 20 other companies involved in similar fraudulent activities. Your case provided the breakthrough. Marcus felt an unexpected sense of satisfaction. His actions not only brought justice for himself, but also helped other victims. One more thing, Sarah continued. The FBI is considering creating a commercial fraud prevention program. We hope you will consider serving as a consultant. The offer took Marcus by surprise, but it also opened his eyes to new possibilities. Perhaps he could use his experience to help others avoid similar pitfalls. I'll think about it, Marcus replied. After hanging up, Marcus continued to stare at the city lights. The story of revenge may be over, but the story of his life continues. He learned an important lesson. Justice is not just about punishing the guilty. It is also about protecting the innocent. And true victory is not seeing the enemy fall, but ensuring that a similar tragedy never happens again. Victoria chose betrayal and got what she deserved. But Marcus chooses justice and gets a chance to start over. That's the power of choice and the weight of consequence. The next morning, Marcus walked into his office feeling the first real sense of optimism in a long time. He has a job to do, a life to live, and a future to build. The past is gone, but the future is full of possibilities. And Marcus Hoffman, having survived betrayal and revenge, is now ready to take on the challenges of the new. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.